Welcome to another episode of In Between Homes. And today I have the pleasure to have this conversation with Nathalie Saunderson. Welcome, Nathalie.
Thank you for having me on here.
Yes, it's a pleasure. And Nathalie lives in Bali, but my first question is, where is home for you?
That is a very funny question because I've moved so much. And I think that for me, also, I have a background in astrology. So I know quite a bit about this question, like diving into charts and maps and moving. But I feel like home for me now is literally anywhere that I feel at peace. And it has less to do with the country and more about the time of my life that I'm going through. Like I have different reasons for loving that place and for knowing why I'm in Bali, but I don't know if Bali will, in fact, I know Bali probably won't be our forever home. So to answer that question concretely, I think home is anywhere I feel most at peace
Mm.
within myself because it changes. My life changes. I change.
Awesome. Speaking about change, can you tell us how was your life like 10 years ago, more or less?
Oh
Where
gosh.
you were, what, in which space, state?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to pull from my cup of tea for that one. You know, well, pull up a chair. Okay, so I almost had a business, a yoga studio business. I was a teacher, a full-time yoga teacher at that time. For many years, I did that before I had my daughter. And I knew that I really wanted to be a mom. In fact, I'd probably been teaching for already about 8 years full time. So for me, I think a lot of my life has been really led by growth and exploration and knowing that kind of like intuitive nudge, like what's next, where do I focus, where do I go, how to move, who am I, you know what I mean? And who do you kind of like surround yourself with? It's mostly been a lot of that guidance, pretty much still is.
Mm.
And then I hit a point, I think around 27, 28, smack dab if you're an astrologer or astrologist, Saturn return, where I was like, I want to be a mom and I know I really want to be a mom. And that was kind of a very, I don't want to say difficult, but it was a very big challenge. If I was to go back and talk to anybody who's listening to this that really wants to be in a mom and isn't one yet, God, I feel like I could write a book about that because it's such an embodied thing, right? It's very difficult to like talk yourself out of it or wait patiently when your body's literally and my soul at that point was like, let's get going. We have a job to do here. Um, and I think that process was like very perfect for leading me into actual motherhood because it was no longer on my agenda, you know? And I think this is one thing that women don't often talk about, but now we're on this chat and I feel like spilling the tea a bit. Like once you become a mother, there's this other quality of your life that really takes root, which is surrender. And no matter what your situation looks like, who you're with, whatever is going on, you will probably hit that theme more times than you expect. Yeah.
Wow. And so I know today that you are a mom. So from who you are today, did you imagine your life of today 10 years ago? Like,
Yes, no, parts of it for sure. I always knew before I had Emma, my daughter, that I wanted to live in the sun again. I lived in Asia, Thailand when I was young,
mm,
20s. I thrive in the sun. I love being warm. I like being outside, like there were elements that do not surprise me one bit. Um, my line of work, actually, I probably wouldn't have guessed that yet because I was still teaching. I'm such a passionate yogi still, but I no longer have that relationship where it's like what I want to do full time for many reasons. It
mm,
evolved and then it became communication and writing and working with personal development and working with women in their business, but I don't really see it as business. It's more like their visions, you know? So it's very similar to work that I was doing as a teacher, which is um, kind of like opening up the body and the person to ultimately pursue what they felt their heart needed to follow in this lifetime. It's just a few, it's in a different way with a different method, you know? So yeah, it's one of those funny things where I don't think I could have predicted, but I'm not surprised, if that makes sense.
And what do you like in this fact of digging out into the someone else story? What is the passion coming from?
I have always known that I wanted to work with people, like under 10. I had a lot of insight, a lot of intuition, a very kind of like sensitive, people, empathic nature. And I always knew, I was young and I'd flip through National Geographics and look at that place in the world and those types of people. And I was like, people, I liked people, you know? Um, and then of course, I think me being me, I just have always been very dialed into what I can read from a person. And then when you work with so many people, you really become fascinated and a little bit of a psychologist. I thought I wanted to pursue that at one stage, and then I realized it was too much of a box, right? It was limited to like the mental, and that wasn't really the plane that I was the most attracted to. It had to have soul and energetics and what I could see around a person and a much more, I think, spacious view than just let's look at your history and you know what I mean? Like it's quite boxy, like you're a pattern and you fall into a pattern usually. Like whereas I think people are so vast and so deep once you get to know them. So I've never really gotten bored. Um, and the more I learn about people, the more I also feel I think this is age as well. Like there's such a deep respect I have. Even if I don't necessarily like someone, I can usually recognize like that we're not all here to like each other, if that makes sense, but we're here because we're playing a role. Like there's a reason that we're here, and everybody has a contribution in their own way, however they express that. And that's what I like to help kind of like bring forward.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the process, how you support people? Because I think um, it's kind of a pressure on a lot of people. I need to find my purpose or why I'm here. I feel like yes, I should sell more or I should find my purpose. And then people may get lost at some stage of, okay, my life doesn't make sense anymore. My soul is telling me something else, but they get confused. So how do you support people that maybe wonder, seeking for answers?
hmm That's a great question. I think that most people that find me or come towards me know that I can help them when they already have a few answers, but they're not quite sure what it looks like. And then I help because of the way that I'm built. And I have kind of like a weird intuitive way of seeing what they can't. Um, but I think one of the really, if I was to go back and listen to my advice now when I was younger, just follow the things that resonate and bring you like that sense of I want to know more or I'm intrigued. And unfortunately, for most of us, even when we can identify, for me, it was always people because I love the human spirit. I'm like, there's an artistry in me that really likes wellness, well-being, creativity. Like I'm a life path 3. I like to create things. And for me, like a lot of life, down to how you do your dinner, and trust me as a mom, it's not like that every single day, but it can be, you know, what you make out of an outfit or what you make out of a relationship, like every aspect has this potential.
Mm.
Uh, but I think even when you're following the things that bring you joy or interesting to you, most of us will hit that point where we have to decondition what we've been taught. And then we need to step fully through the doors of that's not what my parents want for me, or that might not be a quote unquote practical, whatever that is. Let's throw that idea out the window. Because life is ultimately unpredictable.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm midlife right now, and what we were taught roughly, it's not at all the same as the current reality, right? When we were like making decisions about who we wanted to be and how we got there, right? It was still very much go to university, think ahead, plan ahead. And luckily, I needed always to have my own answers first. And that was not how I did my path at all.
Yeah,
So
finding your own answers and following, yeah, following what makes you alive, or you say what brings you joy. And I think, we over try to complexify those things about purpose and, mission and all of that. But then it's us about living and aliveness in today's life. And yes, a lot of um, work has to be done on removing what has been told to us that this is one path,
Mhm.
should be on that path, and you are not. So, talking about path, have you always been an entrepreneur? How this your work life happen?
Answer is almost always yes. As you
Mm-hmm.
know, this year I was an employee, well, still a contractor, but that was probably the closest for many, many years that I was working in a team. I've also run businesses, so I've run other people's businesses. I've always kind of been in a role of, and I do quite well in that position where I'm collaborating and I'm able to bring my background and my communication skills and my knowledge of how people receive things, but the thing with entrepreneurial life is that I could go so into this, but for women, I think it's really important to know how you're designed. And I would agree with you, going back 2 steps, is that after reading enough charts and talking to enough people and being around enough people's bodies, not everybody has this like save the world purpose. Like some people's purpose is literally to have those two children, or and do a really amazing job of that, or contribute to the partnership that the other person has a big purpose, and that is you are a necessary. Do you know what I mean? So it's like I think we've many things I discovered as I got older was that like sometimes we have these ideas in the wellness potential world that we're a part of that are actually leading people further from themselves, right? It's this quest.
Yeah.
Like it must be a quest. It has to be hard. I got to work, right? And then as you get older, especially I think in the female body, you're like, no, that's not how it is. Actually, we have everything. Like we have connection. Like if we have connection to ourselves and good people and community and connection to basically for a lot of people, like those connections, right, is what makes your life rich and purposeful and rewarding and not the accolades or the really fancy career, like people can reach that stage, and I've taught many of them and then they find yoga. Many people find yoga midlife. I've just found it at 16. So it's everybody has a different entry point, if you will.
Yeah, and not everyone is designed to do the same thing. I think it's a really good reminder because
Oh,
also those big visionary people, they need support. They need people that are able to also do the 9 to 5 in a way and produce and the consistency and all of that. But what is important, I guess, if the people that listen are on the quest is really finding what is you, and not trying to follow a model that may seems interesting, but really like listening to your deepest need and desire, I would say, like what's resonates within yourself.
mhm.
And you were mentioning you discovered yoga at 16 years old. What is the impact of yoga for you? What has been bringing it? What does yoga bring to your life?
I feel like that's it's a big question. It's like saying, how does being married 20 years feel? That's what it feels like, you
Okay, what
know?
are your 3 tips actually?
But I can answer it. But I can answer it. I think that I'm learning at this stage of my life that I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change my order. I maybe I'm surprised that, like, I thought I wanted 3 kids. I think everybody goes through life, and when you're younger, you have this like projector, let's say, of like, I think I'll do it this way. But life actually has its own path for you, and it has its own lessons that we can't always see. And for me, looking at where yoga has even like 20 years when I started teaching, it's a different ballgame, right? It's different now. What people are talking about, what people are open to, what they know about. Um, when I started teaching, we weren't even allowed to really say the word God in the studio, right? Because it was controversial, it might step on people's toes. Some people didn't want to come to yoga to hear that kind of side of the practice, right? And so, but the thing is, when you teach, you have a relationship with something and then you're translating it. Like if I was instructing, I would just teach a bunch of poses and call it a day. But when you teach yoga, you teach it. You teach the theory behind it. You teach the practicality of it. You hold the space for it. You know exactly how to cue people. And for me, I think it gave me a very large dose of presence, right? So most people would say, I think about me that like I don't freak out, or I can hold a lot. I can hold people's stuff, when you spend a lot of time slowing life down. It's given me that. You've spent like a lot of time at a different frequency. I guess it's like a musician. You okay? It's very similar, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you bring about the slowness and the slowing down. And for me, has been also, living in Bali and practicing yoga in Bali and all of that. And for me, yes, it's learning how to be present, how not to be in your head too much about worrying about the future or what happened yesterday and all those things that you actually cannot even manage or control. So, so I love, yeah, the evolution you are saying about yoga, and I think it's also the connection with the body, like in the present moment. I think, would you have any recommendation for someone that I never tried yoga and would love to start? Or do you have advice for them?
Um, it's like anything when you start. You are more hesitant than it's a big step, right? It's like you go into the studio and I can always tell who's new and you probably feel like everybody knows what they're doing. But I think that yoga is also not only going to give you this like slowing down and relaxation and all those things, it's about your relationship to you. And like if you can imagine, it's almost like a bank account because you and I have talked a lot about like this topic as well. It's like you can never go wrong. As soon as you touch down on that mat for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or maybe you can't get out of the house and you're a mom and you're doing a YouTube video for 20 minutes, you're literally investing in your relationship to yourself. It might not mean you're happy, right? You might discover, like, oh, I'm more stiff, or okay, this is different. I didn't feel that before. But you're going to feel amazing afterwards because you've connected, right? Like, and you're never really going to, I don't know anybody that regrets that. Yeah.
Give me a second.
Aaron? Yeah, yeah, take all your time. Oh, you have been sick, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been clearings and cleansing, I think. Just kidding. So, um, yeah, it's so important for anyone that try and go for the first time that just allow to go for themselves because, of course, you can feel. I remember my first time going to the yoga studio in Bali. In Bali, the level is quite high, I would say. I've been to France to some studio and it's way lower in a way. And you can see everyone's like, oh my God, they're so flexible and so in shape and all of that. And then I went and I kept going. I think allow yourself to keep going, to try different studio, try different classes, and find the one that resonate with you as well. There's so many different styles, different teachers, even for the same style. So I love what you say about just even if you do on your yoga mat at home and with a YouTube video, just try. But having this sense of presence is so important. And I love what you say about the bank account. Yeah, you just, start developing a relationship with your body, with presence. And yeah, over time, you become more friends. Whatever you feel more comfortable, you can see your body stretching and becoming more flexible. And after a while, you're like, oh my God, I'm doing that. I am. So,
There's stages that people go through because I've taught for long enough. There's stages that you can watch. There's like doorways that you can't open the third one. You have to start with the first one. And the first one is always showing up. And it's very simple. And then you start to learn the practice, right? So then you start to let go of all the I don't know if I'm in the right class. Am I specific? What do we need to block? Is she looking at me? Am I doing this right? He's doing it. Then you start to actually go into the practice, right? And then you start to get the experience of the practice. And then that usually gets you really aware of like the other door, the third door, which is like possibility, right? Maybe it's possibility of doing a headstand that was taught that day, but it's still like this, maybe, right? And maybe it's the possibility of like sitting and breathing while you feel sad about a loss you've gone through. So it's very interesting. It's like you can't really experience depth until you move into the body. Like I feel really strongly about this because I know so many people who like to play here and like up here, like energy, but they still haven't made friends, a home in their body, you know? And this is like it's a little bit sad. It's funny to be having this conversation, but it's like it can take years to really claim like this is a friend instead of this is something you're trying to like control, perfect, whatever. That we're kind of influenced when we're younger to see our body as like this object, right? No, good. Take your time.
thank you.
Oh, good.
Um, it's a journey, as you said, the journey into making your body, becoming friends with your body, becoming this new relationship with the body. It's a journey. I've been practicing yoga for 9 years, I think now, and yeah, it's a learning curve of discovering what is possible, having more confidence, trusting more your body, your capabilities, and it's like everything I would say in life. It's really a journey. So allowing ourselves to explore, to feel called that, oh, maybe yoga is on my, wish list for next year resolution and all those things. So maybe it's something I would love to explore and allowing ourselves to explore for a few times. And yeah, you mentioned that Bali has been a chapter for you, like you're still living in Bali. A lot of people are really like, oh, I will start a new life, a new chapter in Bali. What would you recommend to someone that may be seeking for a new chapter and willing to move to Bali?
Um, I guess my truest answer would be know why you want to move to Bali. Like really understand your intention because with manifestation, it's like there's so much more than looking at a picture of a beach, right? For some people that might work, but then you get there and it might not be what you anticipate, right? So I think like really understanding the feeling that you're after that Bali represents, right? Because when I moved to Bali, it was definitely during COVID, and it was at a time where I was very clear that that was like the best option for myself and my daughter. And there was no resistance to that knowing, right? So I knew we're going to go there. It's going to be a nice like bubble for a bit. It's a good place to have her while this is playing out. But if you're talking about somebody who's listening that's really always seen Bali, like pretty pictures of vacations and stuff, you know, I think it's really important to know that visiting and living is different. And I think that the whatever it is that within you that's creating that desire, like look at that. And really, if it's like a pure, true, like multi-layered, it's Bali, like a green light, then like do the research. But I think that when I hear a lot of people talking about it on the chats, it's like they try and do the research without really understanding why they want to move to Bali. Bali represent, and it's almost backwards, right? Because Bali represents a lot of things to people like freedom, flexibility, coconut, sun. It's got that, but it also has other things, like some really deep healing and some really big lessons for most of us that come here, right? Would you agree?
I I 100% agree. Like Bali
Like
is a for
a
me.
light and dark.
Yeah, exactly. So you also need to be ready for the healing because usually it's a great place for transition
Mhm.
and creating a new chapter. But it will only allow you to do so if you are open to do the work as well, the growth work, to heal what is need to be healed and to look at that. If you really want to be, I would say, successful in living your best life in Bali and sustain that, because if not, I saw a lot of people after maybe 2 years burning all their money and flying back somewhere else or flying back home. So
Mhm.
Bali is an amazing place to start fresh and new chapter, but you need to be willing to prove
Mhm.
that you want to become the person of your dream, I guess.
I think it asks you, it does a lot of reflecting. It's very quick feedback in the field, right? And we know that like it's got a very high vibration. And it's very fast paced, surprisingly. Like you can find places where you can go slower, but for most people that are here, there's something going on. Maybe they're on a journey of spiritual discovery. Maybe they're wanting to build a business. Maybe they're building a villa. Maybe they're, like I'm raising a daughter and I'm working. So there's always like something that keeps you up here, right? That some people really come and they discover they have so much healing to do, right? Around a certain topic, and that takes them on a journey. But I do think that before you move anywhere, it's saying this as someone who's traveled a lot when I was younger and didn't know what I was running away from. Really ask yourself, like, what is it that I'm looking for from this new place? Because if it's clear within you and it still feels like the right decision, then you start to do the practicalities of doing a bit of research and talking to people. I prefer talking to people who live there over reading forums where you get all the different opinions and
Of course.
yeah. So
Yeah. So you mentioned that the other step is most what people do is running away from things, and I've been in this case as well a long time ago. Do you think you have also been in your life running away from your home base, I would say, to
I think for a lot of years I was, to be honest, but I was also running towards what I knew I needed. So there's two sides to that, I think that for a long time, I still to this day never really felt like I fit in North America, as in wouldn't have been, I'm half European as well, but half British. But I think I could say a lot about this and also goes back to my practice of astrology. Just because we're born somewhere and we choose our family somewhere, often those lessons aren't necessarily culturally. We like the idea, oh, you're born here, you're from here, right? you're from here because you popped out here. I don't really feel like those things are how I think, right? It's like your soul can feel very different. Your soul could be like, no, it's Mexico, or it's Italy. It's definitely Italy. That's where I feel the most me, right? So I think that when I was young, I needed to go and feel into life. I wanted to like try out because it wasn't North America. We all know what North America does. It works a lot. It goes to school, it gets married, it pops out two kids, you buy a house. That's North America. And then a lot of people struggle with that process, right? You maybe have 1 year in between university and, getting serious, but it's pretty
Fun.
lifestyle is not necessarily the focus, let's
Mm,
say. But I've always just really loved culture. I've always really loved looking at ways of living. I've
mm,
always loved living simpler, if that makes sense, like simply with nature, around food. That's more suited to me in
mm,
general. And so yeah, I had to go and experience a bit of everything, if you will.
I love that. I can resonate to my own story. And as a now a woman and a mom, how do you secure yourself while living abroad and all of that? Because it's one of the reason most of people don't try to live somewhere else, is because they have the comfort of their own yeah, social securities and all of that from their government. So how is it for you as a you all the time were a mom, and then now with a kid in charge, how is life for that? How you have made this possible?
I think there's a difference between how I tick and having talked to a few other people specifically about this recently, actually, when I
Mhm.
coach women, because inevitably we hit the fears, right? A lot of people won't take the leap because of the fears. And for some reason, I never really look at the fears. I look at I look at what's pulling me forward. I can see them, right? But I don't focus there because I think I've done this jumping thing enough in my life where I trust my guidance and my nudge. And there's definitely been moments as a parent that have been um, crunchier, right? There's been like the unknown, and then feeling that pressure in my body of I've got to figure this out is more because I have her. But at the same time, I feel like then I quickly realize, well, of course I will because I have her. It's almost like it cancels out, right? If this makes sense. I'm not, but that's my build, right? And not everybody's like that. My build is to look at something and say, like, how am I going to respond? But that also comes from doing that many times where I could have chosen not to do the thing. I could have not left home at 16 and gone to Switzerland as a on a horse farm when I never ridden horses. So, like I think for people that are wondering how to get over their fears, for me, I know that fears get bigger if I sit with them.
Mm,
If I don't act and I sit with that fear and I'm not doing what I know I'm supposed to do, then that fear is like more present
mm,
than if I act and I take that fear. And it's a possibility, but I just don't put my energy there. I don't put my thinking there because I know and myself enough that it's not going to serve me, that it's like saying yes, but no. But if you say yes, but no all the time, you're neither. You're not getting the yes or the no. At least if you have the no, that goes off the table and something else comes towards you. Okay, Bali's not it. That doesn't feel right. Too insecure. Okay, off the table, but then something else can come in, right? So it's kind of like that's how I work anyway.
mm,
I mean, I know also we could have that Bali human design talk. I'm a 4/6, and I mean, I'm a people person. So I always feel like if I am at a point where I don't know, where I'm in transition, and I'm even in transition now because I just turned 40 and I can feel these things brewing, like I'm asking for more, like so I'm having to rewire and I don't know what it looks like. And it's kind of, but I all I'm doing is sitting and it'll come. So the things that don't help you is rushing, impatience, sitting in your fears, doubts. listening to other people, right? That's another one. I don't know about you, but like if I'm in transition, I don't necessarily ask for people's advice because it's not coming from me. It's usually coming from their fears. And like for me, that's not useful. I already know that that's why you're in that position and I'm in mine. You know, so is what do you think about that? Like, is that how you feel too when you've got like something you are working through? Like, what do you feel is the most supportive of you that process, right?
Yeah, I sit a lot on it, and I don't usually share so much why I'm in the process. And it's also sometimes my friends or even family can say, "Hey, why did you didn't
Yeah, where
reach
are
out?"
you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't reach out, but I was actually trying to figure out what I was going through. So I didn't even know what I was going through. It's part of the process that I have, where also like you, I'm barely, not so often taking advice on people. Like I hear and I have conversation, but I really look at where this person is at in that specific area or topic. Because if this person is not inspiring me or having the lives that I'm seeking in that specific, in this space of my life, I'm like, why should I take advice? For example, if you take advice from dating from someone who is single, or are you taking advice from even a couple that have been living together for a long time, or someone that's been able to find that person? I think for me it's really important. So really, yeah, I'm centering more into myself. I'm going to process, and the same as you are, it's coming from me. It has to come from me. I need to see. I need to have the vision. I need to feel what is bothering me. I need to unlock that. And as you were mentioning, into making action or living abroad or all those kind of steps that can feel like a lot of fears for people, I've been the
Mhm.
same as you, that I just feel is the right thing to do. It doesn't make sense at my brain level, but I act on it before that my brain is stopping me. um, and it's
Yeah.
not always easy, because sometimes, like I remember when COVID hit, my whole body, my intuitions guided me like, hey, you need to get out of here. I was in Bali at the time. You need to fly to Australia. They did. And I'm like, okay. And within 24 hours, I made the decision. I took some money out of my bank account. I flew one way to Australia, and then 3 days later, they closed the border. So if I had postponed my decision, like, oh, let's see next week how the situation evolved, maybe it would make sense. I would have not been able actually to move to Australia anymore. I had
Mhm.
only a window of 3 days or 4 days to make that decision. But of course, back
Mhm.
then I didn't know how long I would have. So second guessing decisions are
Mhm.
not, for me, I know it's not the good way.
Are you a sacral authority? Do you know that about your human design or what's your authority?
Yeah, I'm a manifestor, I think 6-3 or 3-6. I don't remember which. But the
Oh,
sacral.
that's like our emotional sacral. So sacral is the easiest to tap into that. Again, it has to go through the body. That body says yes, that body says no. Some women, though, listening to this, because I sometimes have clients, I have a few friends as well, they're emotional authorities. So they don't do well jumping because their emotions, when they're first flooded, will say, ah, and then sometimes that, oh, I didn't sit with all of the emotions, right? To find that best decision. But the thing is, I think it comes back to the same thing, a relationship with your body and knowing how you're designed, right? So knowing what feels more comfortable. Do you not trust your hasty decision, or is your first reaction usually right?
Mm,
Right? So
yeah.
people are designed differently, I think, to
Yeah.
hear their guidance and to whatever it needs to do, the process. But it's the same thing. It needs to go through the body. It needs to go through this like that's how I deal with it best. That's my response. And for me as well, it's like if I know something, it becomes so uncomfortable if I don't act, right? So uncomfortable. And if I don't know, then that's a good sign to sit and observe.
Mm. Yeah,
right?
I can relate to that as well. Yeah, definitely different type of people, different design, and I think what is important is really, it's what I teach a lot to people is when you review, when you look back to what happened, when you get the lesson on life, on business, on your finances, whatever the topic, you are like, oh, this is what happened the best to me actually. So then you kind of also understand way more your own system. So then after you trust it more, and then it's how it's become easier in life. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, we talk about how courageously you have been able, to design your life and change countries and be a mom and embrace surrender as a mom. Um, is it difficult for you to be far away from where you come from, even though you never felt home there? Um, is this something that you feel when you live abroad that more loneliness, I would say?
I think that depends on how someone is used to living, right? If this is your first time moving away, I've lived abroad 3 times, well, four technically, because I've moved around. And there are parts, I think Cheryl Strayed said this once, there's parts of every life you choose that you're going to miss what you didn't choose.
Mm,
And this is, I think, something that I've learned to, my sister and my mom came last year, early in the year. And when my sister left, I felt like this huge, like I was looking around Bali. I was like, why am I here? Because my relationship with my sister is so important. But then I weighed everything out, of the couple days of really missing her. And we still have a great connection and relationship and talk. And I know that if I was to say follow through that decision and move back, I would still be doing the life that I needed to do in front of me, but it's not based around my sister, right? So I think that it depends on like some people are really, really close to their family and they've always lived near their family. I'd say that that would be difficult to live abroad. But for me, it's been like I find freedom in flowing with life and not for instance, I never understood those people that were like every year we go to the same cabin for 25 years. I was like every year. I was like where else wouldn't you want to go somewhere new? But some people are built like that. Some
mm,
people have that in their chart. That's what makes them thrive, right? And that's why I started using charts again with working with women because it gave me permission and it gave me insight into my advice. So I wasn't just coaching someone like me because that's not really my main focus, right? I'm not just looking for a bunch of Natalie's that have lived Natalie's life like that. I don't know. That would
mhm,
only be so challenging, maybe. But it's really about like understanding your design
mm,
and then saying like, is this a life or am I designed to try it? To have a one-off experience and move my family for 6 months and just try it, but not it be forever, right? So maybe there's lots of different ways, to figure out like having the best of both worlds if you want that consistency with where you feel home is, but then you crave adventure and how does that look? Like that's the beauty of, I think, getting to know yourself
yeah.
and really understanding like what are my top priorities and what
So
needs to
yeah.
yeah.
Um, so you were explaining a lot about the chart readings. How do you support a client today? Can you explain us a little bit more how, if someone was interested to potentially do some work with you, how would it look like?
So I discovered very quickly a little backstory. After I had my daughter, I was already doing copywriting. I was already doing mostly like behind the screens work for businesses, brands. And then I realized I was actually doing a lot more coaching. So I was giving like ideas and I was giving feedback based on like psychology. I was kind of like doing all this other things that I wasn't really aware I was doing at first. And then I realized I'd studied astrology and I was interested in like I took a couple clients and I realized if I read their chart, I'm like, that's why that's not working. So slowly, like year two, I'm now almost seven, that became part of what I offer. It's I can do sessions for people and sometimes still do sessions for a lot of people know me in Canada anyway as a yoga teacher. So they know me as someone who's already been kind of giving advice and spiritual advice for a lot of years. And for them, that might feel strange that I'm now working with businesses, but for me, it's like it's very much the same thing. It's helping people find a clean path to what is most aligned. And so people can book, if they just want to know about astrology, you can book an astrology session. I also do what I've called intuitive guidance for the last 2 years, which is like if you come and you speak and you talk about something, I can already see what's surrounding you and why that issue is in your life, right? So there's things that I learned from teaching yoga that I don't know, they just kind of came with me into this new part of my life. And then to be honest, I have packages that I help women work through some really consistent blocks that I see with women in their work. It's like I was seeing clarity, it's getting really clear, right? Because women have usually so much to offer, so many ideas, yeah. So many ideas, but maybe not know where to start or like which one to, like a balloon to pull down from the cloud first and then like work with that and then the next balloon. So
Mm.
women can sometimes get too flooded or floored with too many things and then they don't take action. So that was one thing I saw. And then the next thing I started to discover was self-worth, which we've talked a little bit about. And I've had to work through it too, right? I've had to work through like looking at my life and saying like, wow, like I didn't realize like I was asking for that because I didn't want to look at that, right? And that's been really fascinating too. So yeah, if people are interested in the astrology, I mix my kind of site, I guess, at this point with the reading, and they can also just do an intuitive guidance session, or I do specifically brand work. So I help women really kind of like move that needle forward.
Mm.
So we do a lot of like personal work. I'm going to be honest, like if you want to grow, I think you probably find this too, no? With helping women in their financial world. It's so many things in our wiring are holding us back from real true growth and new experiences because we didn't know we had that belief or memory that we're afraid of bringing up again, right? It's fascinating like what our bodies do. So yeah.
Yeah, we have so much history and conscious things that need
Cells.
required this work. Yeah, and in the
Yeah.
body, in the cells, and all of that. So it may seems a little bit like, what are you talking about? But honestly speaking, on the path, if you are, I think if people are called to have something else in their life and they are ready to do the work, the inner work and working on themselves, it's leading to beautiful destination and enjoying the journey of life. And this is, and whatever you're coming from, whatever is your path, you have great life to be lived, whatever it's mean, what is the definition for you. So, yeah, you talk about self-worth, and I think for women it's a huge topic of how to have, especially as an entrepreneur, how to price yourself, how to sell your services. And when you are not doing something per hour, it's like, oh my God, I put a tag price on what I do and all those things. So, how has been for you this journey more with self-worth and pricing yourself?
Well, ironically, in the beginning of 2023, in Bali, we use certain words. I'm a big word person, like big, if I was to really go into it. And I had a download, and I was working at the time with somebody there was a lot of like inspiration and creativity and projects, and that's when I'm most useful. That's when I'm in my zone, is when I'm allowed to move forward and create. And this whole concept of money started coming in. And I have a course that has been waiting for me to kind of package the bow and it's right, it's there. It's all recorded, it's all literally, and I'm going to be releasing it next month and I'm really looking forward to it. But I guess it was time that like Bali, like we said with the lesson, that it was like I needed a total shift in my perception with this relationship because it was money is not actually solid, right? It's a relationship you're having, just like you're having a relationship with food your whole life, just like you're having a relationship with your breath your whole life. And if you make it mean I'm either stressed or I'm not, like it's just such a black and white limited way of seeing it. Yeah. So I just had this like whole body of work come to me, especially for women,
Mm.
because that's why I actually started Conscious Female Brands because I was seeing women were struggling with different things than men were. Like men would be like, okay, I'm gonna shoot, I'm aim, I want that number, and then they just kind of zone out and focus, and they some women could still do that, but I guarantee, as a woman that used to do that before Emma, that it doesn't take the rest of us with you, right? So then we let go of our relationships, we let go of our self-care, we let go of all these things. So it's almost impossible, and I would, open to this idea being explored more for people listening. It's almost impossible for a woman to piece off herself and just focus forever on money. And if
Mm.
she does, she's letting other parts of herself down.
Exactly. Mm.
Yeah. So then I discovered by pulling back whatever was coming through me more, it's like, okay, well, what does a healthier relationship with money look like? And for me, it was like, well, first of all, releasing the stress. So it doesn't matter to me anymore how much I'm making, how little I'm making, if I'm a little bit in debt, if I suddenly I get a I've really worked on that
Mm.
because that does not define who I am, how worthy I am, what's going to happen next. Like you turn a corner and things shift tomorrow, right? So that's one thing that I've removed and really been watching is like, yes, work with numbers, but the numbers don't lead. I lead.
Mm.
And that's a really weird lesson to, first one. And if you research, because I've done a lot of research about this, you research people that have made a lot of money, they've actually lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I have very good friends that are very affluent and they have to be able to expand. It's almost like have this belief that it's similar to love, right? So like if you're willing to risk, you have to, you know what I mean? Like you
Mm.
cannot say, okay, this is safe. I only want this much love. Like if you have that belief with money, then that's all you're gonna get, right? But if you have this, okay, I'm safe. I'm okay. And you play and you explore your own survival mechanisms, which I believe everybody has around money, like where fear can take over and you're just full in stress mode and then you're not in the frequency of abundance, right? So I kind of did a lot of digging in my own and with other women too. And I was noticing that a lot of women were underpricing themselves
Mm. Yeah.
or not talking about money, not
Or,
talking.
or
Yeah.
avoiding the topic and then have to do a side job. Like what is really hurting me the most, I think, when I see the world today and some entrepreneurs is, yeah, they have this gift, they are sharing it, but not making much money from it. And then they end up having I would say a job in a shop next door or like something to pay the bills. And I'm like, how in a way stupid is that? Because when you are able to bring the love and create this relationship with finances, with money, and seeing money, as you say, like more you are able to open and expand, more can come. And it's true. And what I learned as well from very wealthy people, they lost a lot. So you
Mm-hmm.
cannot hold on. Money for me is a tool. It's coming in and out. There are period of your life where you will have way more than what you need. Period
Mm-hmm.
of your life where, oh, it's gonna be a stretch. It can be thousand of reasons, not always due to you, and it's okay, it's like, and you just need to remember that it's like love. You love yourself first, and money, with money is like whatever is going to happen, I'm going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
And
didn't, yeah,
to trust, right? There's that.
trust.
This is the word I think that I'm
Mhm.
also probably in the line of work that I'm in with women. It's like, I know this word. For me, this is spirituality. And so even though I say, and I really work with words when I work with a woman's brand, but it's like business is not actually busyness. It's what you're doing with your time. And if you set up a business that you love, the frequency of that people can feel, especially with women. You know, when a woman loves what she's doing and what she's wearing and her environment, like it's magnetic, yeah. And that's money likes that. People like that. People want to see what that's about. People want to understand what the service is or what your opinion is or what you offer, right? So it's all very tied to its frequency.
Mm.
And I mean, unfortunately, we have quite a few things that are changing, shape-shifting right now in the world. But money can also come with this, like the history of money. And that is what the first step I talk about in my course, which I never plan. I just kind of free flow. And the first thing was like the history of women and money. Okay, show me in history where a woman was wealthy, where she wasn't under physical threat, she wasn't marriable, she was difficult, she was, so the association and the conditioning with women and money, and then juxtapose 2024, Boss Babe has money, her marketing's got money flying every. How does that feel for us? Does it look inviting? And so I always like there's many different angles to this, Lucia, and I would love to talk more about it next year because if you have a business, if you have a house to support, you have to have a relationship with this topic,
Exactly.
you know? And like I definitely do, because I create our world. I'm the breadwinner, so to say. And it's like, and how I've done that, I won't take things anymore if it's a no, if it's a
Mm.
no. And sometimes I have to learn what's a yes and a like everybody. But it's like, no, I've decided in my soul I'm not saying yes when I mean no, you
Mm.
know, like, and that's also challenging because you have to lean into like, I will be supported in times when you said like before, like sometimes we don't always know how it's gonna work out in transition, but yeah, it's a dance.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know. You have to trust and at least faith in life in that. And yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I love the what you bring about the numbers, and for me it's so important the frequency and having a system. Just you need to pay the bill. You need to have a house and uh, food on the table. And today's world, except if you have your own already paid house and your own garden, and you may not need the external world, most likely you need to pay bills. So it's where let's really be friends in 2025 and for the rest of life in the future, because for me it's a topic that has been number one. Like I wouldn't have done nothing in my life or way less than I've done if I didn't have this friendship with numbers. Because whatever I had on my bank account, I made decisions that were driven by what I wanted to do and not by the reality of my bank account. And then there are always situation and life has been showing me as well that more I've been choosing myself and those yeses,
Mhm.
more was coming, but not to sit on my bank account, to reinvest, to have a team, to whatever, buying a flight ticket, maybe for my parents to visit me next time, all those things. So the relationship with money is something to build up, is something to be totally fine to look at it. I call my method date your finances. It's because has to be a date, like to cultivate 20 years of marriage, you need to still date your husband. So I do believe, for me at least, I have less experience in marriage, but for finances, that's been the thing for me. Like, that's been the way that, okay, now I see where I am and I need to shift and I need to look at it. So I'm very pleased that you are also bringing this energy and this love for numbers, because it's essential. And yeah, let's see what next year is going to bring. But yeah, more women are going to share more greatness about numbers, and I'm so excited, you know.
I feel like it's similar to my when I started, 20 years ago. It was everything was about spirit and humanity and connection. And I
Mm,
would never trade that after what happened in 2020 because I had all this, I don't know, it's like I had a bank account, but in a different way, you know, and I could hold all of this reverberation of the collective and separate where I was at and where they were at.
mm,
But whatever your bank account is, whether it's in that marriage or it's in whatever you've invested in, I personally think it's what you were supposed to. The lessons that you had with the path that you chose. At whatever point, this is what I find most fascinating as we get older. We need to remember that we're always allowed to be a beginner and we're always allowed to start again. And we're always allowed to shift and we're always allowed to try something different, right? And this is something that I really feel also with money. It's like we all have a relationship. We've made good choices, bad choices. Refresh, it's almost like the computer. Refresh the page, learn more about what works, learn about your habits, learn about what stresses you. So it's like, it's really a dance of, again, it's spiritual when you understand how you're wired and how you can support yourself, especially for spiritual entrepreneurs, who I think is mostly the people that I feel the most suited to work with, this
mm.
reclamation. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all this greatness. We are coming to the end of this episode, but before we close up, I have a rapid fire question that you can answer very shortly. Um, are you ready for it?
I know.
No.
I was like, okay, rapid answers. Okay. Okay. Got it.
Take a sip of your best tea and
You're gonna
so
get the first answer for sure.
yeah. So the first question is one thing you would love for your life.
One thing I would love for my life, that's interesting that you say that. I would probably like to have the experience of being married because I haven't. And like we're saying, I've always wanted to experience things that I haven't.
Love it.
Something only recently came into my awareness.
Mm. One thing you would love for the world.
Oh, I would like us to focus more on what we want to see than what is wrong with the world.
I love that. The worst advice you have ever received.
Oh gosh. That there are such things as regrets. I don't believe in regrets.
Mm. The best advice you have received.
The best advice I've received. Oh, truth shifts.
Mm. Love that. And the last one, if you had a magic wand, what would you transform?
What would I transform? Oh, that's a tough one, Lucy. I'm trying to think fast. What would I transform? I would remove, that was easy actually. I would remove a lot of darkness from what's happening in the world right now. I think what's going on is like we are starting to wake up to just how amazing and what is possible as a person in this lifetime. And I would remove a lot of the old. I would just, you
Clean.
know,
Clean
energy.
it.
Done. Send it somewhere in the solar system that's not, yeah, I would just speed that process up.
I love it. Thank you so much, Natalie. Would you love to add something?
No, I would say if anybody's thinking about big life changes, actually, I will add this little bit. The first thing I would really look at what it is that you're after. Look at that craving that your soul is trying to share with you. And whatever the details are, will get sorted once you're like, this is next. So yeah, follow that, Bliss.
Yes, yes to this. So thank you so much, Natalie. And as usual, you will find all her details below. So reach out, share, and thank you so much. And a pleasure to
You
see
for
you
having me.
again.
Yes, bye.